Jodeci's on MCA, and myself, Onifa, and So For Real.
In 2011, the world lost Heavy D, a hip-hop legend loved across the globe. His funeral was stacked with megastars: Diddy, Jay-Z, Usher, Will Smith. But in the middle of all that star power, something felt off. The cast of Living Single, one of the most iconic black sitcoms of the 90s, was almost completely missing. Only Queen Latifah stood there to honor him, and the silence of the others raised eyebrows everywhere. People couldn't stop asking, where were the rest of them? Was it just a scheduling clash, or was something deeper brewing? Whispers started flying about secret grudges, jealousy over fame, unfair pay, and even bitterness that never got aired out. TC Carson walking away from the show in frustration, Hollywood snatching their concept to create Friends, and cast tensions that made Living Single way messier than it looked on screen. All of it came crashing back the moment Heavy D was laid to rest. Heavy D himself was nothing like the drama around him. He was the gentle giant of hip-hop, born Dwight Arrington Myers in 1967, straight out of Mandeville, Jamaica. He carried with him the grit of an immigrant story. After his family moved to Mount Vernon, New York, young Dwight soaked up the streets, turned his love for music into a movement, and became the Heavy D the world would never forget. It all kicked off with his crew, Heavy D and the Boys. Their debut album, Living Large, dropped in 1987 and instantly made waves. With his smooth flow, easy charisma, and plus-size swagger, Heavy D stole hearts while proving big men could shine in a game obsessed with image. They called him the Gentle Giant, not just for his look, but for the rare kindness he carried in an industry filled with egos. For over a decade, Heavy D kept his crown, from the 1987 smash Mr. Big Stuff to 1997's Big Daddy. While other rappers came and went, he showed staying power and versatility. And even at the peak of his fame, he stayed grounded. Queen Latifah herself once said Heavy D was the very first person to bring her on stage when she was only 18, and that moment changed her life forever. Will Smith himself admitted that he and Jazzy Jeff partly owed their spot in hip-hop to Heavy D's connections. That's how generous the man was. He wasn't just a legend on stage, he was a bridge for others, always opening doors. His compassion and loyalty made him more than an icon. He was family to the people around him. And his ties didn't stop with Queen Latifah. Heavy D was also linked to the world of Living Single. He stepped onto the show as Daryl, Regine's flashy boyfriend, bringing his music and larger-than-life energy straight into the sitcom. That appearance wasn't just a cameo. It made him part of the show's DNA, the living soul inside Living Single. Back in 1993, when Living Single first hit Fox, it was groundbreaking. For the first time, black audiences saw a sitcom that reflected their real lives. Young singles in Brooklyn, hustling, dreaming, and building futures. The 6 main characters quickly became cultural symbols. Khadijah James, the powerhouse journalist played by Queen Latifah. Sinclair, the sweet but naive cousin. Regine, the stylish diva chasing luxury. Maxine, the razor-sharp lawyer with attitude. Overton, the lovable handyman. And Kyle, the slick financial whiz. Together, they flipped TV upside down, creating a lane that forced Hollywood to finally diversify its screens. And right in the middle of that cultural shift came Heavy D. His role as Daryl might have been brief, but it carried weight. His first big moment was in the episode Thanks for Giving, Season 2, Episode 12, a Thanksgiving dinner in Brooklyn, where Daryl suddenly dropped a heartfelt prayer. He said, "Thanks for giving." 'Cause you see, giving teaches us something that receiving doesn't. It allows us to look deep within ourselves. And so thank you. The entire room froze in silence. It wasn't a long speech, but it hit deep, warm, sincere, and pure. Heavy D. Fans still call that moment one of the most unforgettable in Living Single. And after that, Daryl's romance with Kim Field's character gave the show just the right spark before disappearing, but the mark he left was unforgettable. The couple on screen couldn't have been more opposite. Regine was a fashion-obsessed diva chasing designer labels, while Daryl was calm, grounded, and sincere. That clash created hilarious, but also cutting moments, shining a light on the difference between shallow appearances and what real love is supposed to look like. Daryl even returned with a wild twist. He asked Regine to help plan his wedding. But during the preparations, Regine uncovered the truth. Daryl's fiancée didn't care about him at all. She just wanted his money. The drama exploded when Regine exposed the scheme right in front of Daryl, leaving the room stunned. That scene was funny, messy, and heartbreakingly real, all carrying one bold message. Happiness built on lies will never last. Because of those moments, Heavy D's Daryl stopped being just another guest star. He turned into a character fans never forgot. He injected hip-hop flair, his own real-life warmth, and left his mark so deep that it forever tied him to living single. But here's the thing, audiences once believed those 6 characters weren't just besties on screen, but family behind the scenes too. People thought they ate together, laughed together, and stuck by each other like siblings. The truth? The spotlight was hiding shadows. Behind the cameras, there were pay disputes, power struggles, and bitter rivalries that cracked their unity apart. So when Heavy D's funeral came around, the image of that perfect family fell apart instantly. Only Queen Latifah showed up at Grace Baptist Church on November 18th, 2011. Her standing alone, head bowed in grief, was more than just a goodbye. It became a symbol. She wasn't just Khadijah James, the strong lead on screen. She was the glue of the show, the actress and producer who carried the weight, and the friend who never abandoned Heavy D. Latifah and Heavy D went way back, long before the sitcom. They had come up together in the late 80s, riding the same explosive wave of hip-hop, and their bond was real, not scripted. That's why her presence at his funeral carried so much power. It showed loyalty, love, and truth in a world where not everyone stood tall. They weren't just friends, they performed side by side at shows and cultural events, carrying the pride of being pioneers who rose from the streets to the main stage. Heavy D even lent his booming voice to the Living Single theme song, the track that set the vibe for every single episode. His music pulled audiences right into Khadijah's Brooklyn world, making him part of the show's heartbeat forever. So when November 18th, 2011 came, and Grace Baptist Church in Mount Vernon filled to the brim, it was more than a funeral. It was history. The star power was unreal. Diddy, Jay-Z, Usher, Mary J. Blige, Will Smith, all in attendance. Outside, thousands of fans pressed against the gates, crying, filming, and singing farewell songs to the gentle giant they adored. But then came the shocking contrast. Queen Latifah appeared, dressed in black, grief carved across her face, and she was the only member of Living Single to show up. No Kim Fields, no Erica Alexander, no T.C. Carson, just Latifah standing alone before Heavy D's casket. When she stepped up to the podium, her words hit like a sister mourning her brother, raw and unfiltered. Media outlets at the time described her tears as one of the most heartbreaking sights of the entire service. And the contrast couldn't be ignored. On screen, Living Single had sold audiences a perfect family, but in reality, only one cast member cared enough to say goodbye. That image, Latifah in solitude among a sea of celebrities, was haunting. It became a mirror exposing cracks that had been covered up by bright lights and laugh tracks. Latifah stood as the only true link between Heavy D and Living Single, proving that their bond wasn't just TV, it was life. And yet, as fans watched, one burning question echoed through the crowd. Where were the rest of them? Their absence wasn't just strange. It reignited every rumor of behind-the-scenes fractures, power plays, and bitter divides that had split the cast years ago. The silence of the others screamed louder than words. The biggest fracture in Living Single came from T.C. Carson and his explosive exit. As Kyle Barker, he lit up the screen, a slick, charming stockbroker whose fiery banter with Maxine had fans hooked. Their back and forth was the spice of the show, and audiences couldn't get enough. But behind the scenes, Carson paid a heavy price for refusing to stay quiet. In a 2000 interview with the Chicago Tribune, he dropped a bomb, accusing Fox and the producers of never truly backing them. Fox never really supported us. They didn't promote Living Single the way they did white sitcoms. We were always treated as second class, he said. And he wasn't exaggerating. The ratings were strong. The fan love was real, but the network treated them like leftovers. Carson revealed he was often the only one daring to protest the unfair treatment. I was the one speaking up for the group, he remembered. But instead of being heard, he was labeled a problem. That made him a thorn in the producer's side, and they looked for ways to shut him down. By season 5 in 1997, the hammer came down. Carson was pulled aside and told Kyle Barker would no longer appear. Years later, he admitted bitterly, "I didn't just lose a role. "I lost a family. I was pushed out because I demanded fairness." His removal shocked fans. No more sizzling clashes with Maxine. No more witty brotherhood moments with Overton. A piece of the show's soul was gone. Viewers flooded Fox with letters begging for his return, but nothing changed. And that's why, years later, when Carson was absent from Heavy D's funeral in 2011, the silence spoke volumes. Heavy D wasn't just Latifah's close friend. He had acted in Living Single as Daryl and even contributed to the music. So Carson's no-show cut deep, instantly reminding fans of wounds that had never healed. What should have been a reunion of the Living Single family at Heavy D's farewell turned into proof of the opposite. The fractures were real, and the family had fallen apart long before the world noticed. The absence of T.C. Carson already had fans buzzing, but he wasn't the only one missing. Kim Fields' no-show sparked even louder whispers, because her story with Living Single was layered with tension. Before the sitcom, Kim was already a household name, a child star from The Facts of Life, 1979 to 1988. She grew up under the spotlight, so when she stepped into Living Single as Regine Hunter, expectations were sky high. On screen, Regine was a glamorous, label-obsessed diva, always chasing luxury and trying to outshine her friends. The character quickly became a scene stealer, pulling laughs while poking fun at materialism. But behind the camera, Kim Fields was wrestling with a different reality. She wasn't the show's center. That crown belonged to Queen Latifah, who played Khadijah James, the lead character, the producer, and a rising rap star, already dominating the industry. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. On one side, Latifah was a powerhouse, commanding attention both on screen and in real life. On the other, Fields was a grown-up child star, still trying to reclaim her shine. Sources close to the set whispered that Fields often felt sidelined, frustrated that Regine, who could have been built into an independent icon, was reduced to mostly comic relief. And while the cast kept things professional, insiders claimed it was all surface level. Behind the smiles, there was cold distance. Latifah was bold, strategic, career-driven. Fields was polished, perfectionist, but emotionally vulnerable. That clash simmered quietly, but anyone paying attention could sense the tension, even in scenes meant to be lighthearted. So when Heavy D, Latifah's dear friend and Living Single guest star, passed away, Kim Fields' complete absence at the funeral felt like a confirmation of those long-rumored cracks. Fans couldn't ignore it. On screen, Khadijah and Regine were inseparable best friends, but in real life, the dynamic was different. Latifah's towering presence had overshadowed Fields, leaving the once radiant child star dimmed in her glow. Heavy D's funeral, instead of reuniting the Living Single family, only exposed the fractures everyone thought were buried. If Kim Fields' absence hinted at a strained friendship with Queen Latifah, another missing face, Kim Coles, made the silence even louder. Her no-show at Grace Baptist Church left fans wondering if quiet resentment had kept her away. On screen, Kim Coles gave life to Sinclair James, the sweet, bubbly cousin whose innocence and charm made her a fan favorite. She was the laugh machine, the heart of the group, the one viewers adored. But behind the sunshine persona, insiders say Coles carried unspoken frustrations. Latifah was always front and center, the face of the show, the media darling, the name plastered across posters. While Coles, despite her popularity, was rarely given the same recognition. Things got worse when money entered the picture. Rumors swirled that salaries weren't equal, and Coles was one of the cast members left shortchanged. She never called it out directly, but later interviews hinted at a period of quiet struggle. Colleagues whispered that Coles often felt sidelined, treated like a supporting character in the very sitcom she helped make legendary. Latifah's shadow loomed large, too heavy to escape. Even though Sinclair was one of the most beloved characters, Coles reportedly felt her shine was dimmed by an imbalance of power. That's why when she skipped Heavy D's funeral, fans didn't buy the scheduling issue excuse. It looked like a silent statement. To them, her absence screamed louder than words. The bonds were broken, and the wounds never healed. On screen, Sinclair was the glue, the innocent heart holding the crew together. But off screen, resentment and unequal treatment built walls that never came down. And at Heavy D's funeral, Those walls became visible for the world to see. And then there was Erica Alexander, the true outsider. If Latifah's Khadijah was the leader and Coles's Sinclair was the comic relief, Erica's Maxine Shaw was the sharp-tongued secret weapon that turned Living Single into a cultural phenomenon. Maxine was witty, ruthless, and unapologetic, the character who said what others were too afraid to say. Audiences ate up Maxine Shaw's boldness, while critics hailed her as one of the most progressive female characters of the entire 90s. But here's the twist. While Maxine thrived on screen, Erica Alexander was being pushed into the shadows behind the scenes. In multiple interviews, Alexander didn't sugarcoat a thing. She openly said Fox treated Living Single like a second-class show. We were Fox's #1 series for 4 seasons, but we never saw ourselves on a single big billboard in Hollywood, she bitterly recalled. Meanwhile, white sitcoms from the same era were plastered everywhere. Posters, promos, endless ad campaigns, full corporate support. And then came 1994, the year the industry's biggest slap in the face arrived. Just 1 year after Living Single premiered, NBC launched Friends, 6 young people, 1 apartment, chasing love, chasing careers. The formula looked familiar, way too familiar. But this time, the cast was entirely white. Unlike Living Single, Friends was handed millions in marketing dollars and crowned a global phenomenon. Alexander later said on a podcast, "When Friends came out, we knew they had taken our idea. But they had money. They had the system behind them. We didn't. We were just 6 black people trying to prove we deserved to stand on the same stage." Her words cut deep because fans knew she wasn't lying. But the pain didn't stop there. Inside the cast itself, Alexander often felt sidelined. Her voice drowned out while she tried to speak against racial inequities. Fox ignored her, and as Queen Latifah's star power rose even higher, Alexander was quietly pushed out of the decision-making circle. For her, the heartbreak wasn't just that Friends stole the blueprint. It was that the show she helped build never got the respect it truly deserved. And yet, the story of Living Single's scars didn't end with Alexander. Another cast member carried a pain even heavier. John Hinton, the face behind Overton, the goofy handyman with a golden heart, was the sitcom's sunshine. Fans loved him for being the sweet, loyal boyfriend to Sinclair, always bringing warmth and laughter after the fiery Brooklyn banter. But in real life, Hinton's story took a devastating turn in 2000, just when his career looked steady after the sitcom's success. After Living Single, John Hinton's real life took a heartbreaking turn. In Los Angeles, he was involved in a horrific car crash that nearly ended his life. The impact left him with devastating injuries, and doctors had to perform marathon surgeries just to reconstruct his face. But even with all that work, the scars never faded. Overnight, the familiar face of Overton, once a household name, vanished from TV screens, leaving fans in shock. Hinton rarely spoke about the pain, but the silence was telling. His disappearance was a brutal reminder of Hollywood's harsh reality. Fame can vanish in a split second, and no amount of on-screen laughter can protect someone from real-life suffering. For fans, the tragedy was almost too much to process. The soul of the show had been broken in ways that couldn't be fixed. And John wasn't the only one left scarred. T.C. Carson walked away in bitterness for daring to demand fairness. Kim Fields, the child star turned diva, was overshadowed by Queen Latifah's unstoppable rise. Kim Coles carried silent frustration over pay and recognition. Erica Alexander was sidelined and silenced, while Friends shamelessly stole their formula, and Hinton's accident sealed the heartbreak with tragedy. The irony was cruel. Living Single, a sitcom that united millions in laughter, was ripped apart both by its cast's inner struggles and by Hollywood's ruthless machine. And then came the heist of all heists. 1994, just 1 year after Living Single premiered, NBC dropped Friends. 6 pals in New York, juggling love, careers, and comedy. The blueprint looked eerily familiar. The only innovation? Every face was white, polished, and packaged to sell. NBC poured tens of millions into a massive marketing push, plastering the cast across billboards and magazines, making Friends the cultural phenomenon of a generation. While Living Single was left behind, erased like an expired draft. Years later, the truth came out. Erica Alexander was blunt. "They took our idea, changed the color of the skin, and turned it into Friends. That's it. Even Queen Latifah admitted that if Living Single had been promoted like Friends, television history would have been rewritten. And Yvette Lee Bowser, the show's creator, revealed NBC knew a black sitcom had power, but they wanted a version cleaner and easier for white audiences to swallow. That's how Friends was born. Even David Schwimmer, who played Ross, later admitted NBC had considered diversifying the cast, but chose to keep it all white because they believed that formula would be safer and more profitable. And that decision forever changed TV history. Friends wasn't just another sitcom, it was a cultural earthquake. Over 10 seasons and 236 episodes, from 1994 to 2004, it averaged a mind-blowing 25 million viewers per episode. Its biggest night, the one after the Super Bowl, drew 52.9 million people, numbers usually reserved for championship games. From there, Friends turned into a golden goose, generating more than $1 billion a year, even decades after its finale. The cast became A-list royalty. Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, and Matthew Perry shot to global fame. By season 9, they were each cashing $1 million per episode, and even today, they rake in around $20 million annually in royalties. But while Friends became untouchable, Living Single, the show that laid the blueprint, was left in the shadows. Across 5 seasons and 118 episodes from 1993 to 1998, Living Single pulled in a strong 8 to 10 million viewers each week. For an all-black cast in the 90s, that was groundbreaking. But Fox never gave it the same backing. No flashy marketing blitz, no worldwide rollout, no streaming deals to preserve its legacy. The salaries told the same story of neglect. While the Friends cast was getting paid like royalty, the Living Single crew made only a fraction of that. And when the sitcom wrapped, most of its stars didn't get the chance to climb into Hollywood superstardom, despite having the talent to do so. Even the show itself was brushed aside. It wasn't reissued or pushed onto Netflix or HBO Max to compete for billion-dollar streaming deals like Friends was. The contrast is impossible to ignore. On one side, Friends stands as a global monument worth billions. On the other, Living Single, the true originator of the New York Friends navigating life and love formula, was boxed into cultural memory, celebrated mainly within the black community, but robbed of its chance to shine worldwide. Critics now call it what it was: historical whitewashing. The original idea came from a black sitcom, but only when the faces were switched to white did Hollywood embrace it as a masterpiece. And if Friends was proof of how unfair the industry could be, Heavy D's funeral reminded us of something just as bitter. The bonds that seemed unbreakable on screen weren't always real when the cameras shut off. Fans love to imagine that what they see on screen is real, that casts are one big family off camera too. But Heavy D's funeral ripped that illusion apart. The truth was clear. Some of those friendships existed only for the cameras, built to sell a dream, not to survive real life. Now, more than 30 years after Living Single first aired, the once legendary cast has scattered, each carrying their own story, a mix of brilliance, heartbreak, and surprising turns. At the center still stands Queen Latifah, the power queen of Hollywood. After her run as Khadijah James, she built one of the most multifaceted careers in entertainment: singer, rapper, actress, producer. Today, her empire is valued at around $70 million, making her one of the richest and most influential artists of her generation. But what grabs even more attention is her private life. Latifah, usually guarded, has recently been seen publicly with her son Rebel and her longtime partner Ebony Nichols, giving fans a rare glimpse of her world. Kim Fields, the child star turned sitcom diva, reinvented herself behind the camera. After dazzling as Regine Hunter, she became a director, shaping hits like Kenan and Kel and House of Pain. And since 2021, she's reclaimed the spotlight with Netflix's The Upshaws, proving her presence can't be erased. With a net worth estimated between $6 and $8 million, Fields stands as living proof of resilience and long-term star power. Kim Coles, the goofy yet lovable Sinclair, still carries that same sunshine energy in real life. She now pops up on Days of Our Lives as Nurse Whitley King, while also co-hosting the podcast Reliving Single with Erica Alexander. On it, they spill behind-the-scenes stories, nostalgia, and secrets fans never knew. But Coles has also revealed the darker side. She was pressured about her body image during filming, even warned her weight could become the butt of jokes. Shocking. Yet in those moments, Queen Latifah stepped up. refusing to let her co-star be humiliated on screen. That show of solidarity only deepened their bond, proving that while Hollywood politics caused fractures, there were still moments of real love and loyalty holding pieces of the cast together. The bond among the living single women ran so deep that their menstrual cycles synced during filming, a detail that showed just how close they really were. Erica Alexander, who brought Maxine Shaw's razor-sharp wit to life, kept that same fire long after the sitcom ended. She became a multi-talented force, an actress, writer, producer, and activist. Most recently, she earned major acclaim in the 2023 film American Fiction, a project that scored an Academy Award nomination and love from the Independent Spirit Awards. Erica hasn't just stayed relevant, she stayed powerful. She co-hosts the Reliving Single podcast with Kim Coles, keeping the sitcom spirit alive while speaking out boldly on racial justice and opening doors for Black artists in Hollywood. With a net worth around $3 million, her true wealth lies in her voice, her courage, and her refusal to compromise her artistry. As for John Hinton, the lovable Overton who once made millions laugh, his story turned tragic. After his devastating car accident, his life shifted into quiet solitude. He rarely appears in public now, and for fans who adored him, his absence remains one of the most heartbreaking legacies tied to the show. Then there's T.C. Carson, the suave Kyle Barker who left under bitter circumstances. Though his face didn't dominate TV screens after living single, he carved a different lane through voice acting and animation in video games. No, he never reached Queen Latifah's empire of wealth and fame, but his role as Kyle cemented him in pop culture forever, and his loyal fans have never stopped loving him. Now, 3 decades later, each cast member has traveled their own road. Some soared to brilliance, some endured tragedy, and others kept working quietly in the background. Yet every one of them remains an essential piece of the sitcom that forever changed how Hollywood portrayed Black lives on screen. And no matter the conflicts, no matter the fractures, to audiences, they'll always be the Brooklyn family. The ones who gave us laughter, culture, and hope in a world that often tried to silence them. So if you love this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, share this video with your people, and make sure you're subscribed for more. See you in the next video.